Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel and happy new year. So as some of you may know, I've been doing weekly horoscopes on TikTok for about a year and a half now, and they're a mainstay of my channel. A lot of people look for them and they really enjoy them, which is great, and I'm very grateful that I get to help people with them. And I have done a few here on YouTube, but I thought this year I'm going to make a real push to be committed to doing weekly horoscopes on here that have a little bit more detail. We talk about main themes of the week, but also I use some of my own interest in things like politics, where I can talk about some of the external factors that may be affecting the world, and so much going on in the world right now that astrology has a lot to say. So with this particular series, like as I said, I've done this before, what I want to do is focus on the main themes of the week. So if we have a quite large transit happening, so something, for example, this week, like Neptune entering Aries, which is very big, then I want to talk about that for a little bit. I will be doing individual videos as well, so don't worry about that. But then I also will be talking about how this affects the rising sign. So you will have your horoscope as well. You can watch your sun, moon, or rising, but I always say rising is more accurate because of their houses. But everyone has a very complex chart, so do what you think is right for you. And I will also talk about some of the things that I think are going to affect the world as well. So let's get started. So one of the big main themes this week is that Neptune is going to be moving into Aries. So I think it's very important to discuss Neptune because it's a outer generational planet in modern astrology. Therefore, traditional astrologers who only focus on the 7 main traditional planets will not give much credence to Neptune, because they will think that, well, it's relatively new, it's not research, but for decades, for eons. So actually, I'm not really going to pay attention to it. My view is that we can learn a lot from new developments in astrology and in the world, and I don't think that we should be turning a blind eye to it. However, I can understand where they're coming from, and I also share a similar view. My personal opinion as an astrologer is that Neptune is important in its own right, but it should not be a planet that you look to describe a personality that affects you on a personal level. This is because Neptune is a generational planet. Therefore, it moves every 14 or so years. And because of that, there's going to be a lot of people in the world that also have a similar Neptune to you. I have a Neptune in Capricorn. There are like millions of people also Neptune in Capricorn. We cannot have the same traits. It will affect external events. So, for example, say your landlord wants to kick you out. That doesn't affect your personality. It's not a personal thing. But if you've got Neptune in the 4th house, it's an external event for which you must react to. So it's not like, oh, this is a personal thing, we're kicking you out. It's like, I've got to sell the house, so unfortunately you're like a casualty here. So it's external. We also look to the media with things like Neptune as well. So that's why I was talking about politics is going to be really interesting. And of course in Aries, which, gets everyone's shackles up a little bit because of how stereotypically aggressive it is. One thing I want to talk about with Neptune in Aries, which is actually taking place January the 26th, so on Monday, it is going to be there for 14 years. Okay, so I'll just put the dates here on the screen for you so you can put them down in your diary if you want to. So we had it briefly last year. Okay, we had that coincided with Saturn in Aries, and that was like the first glimpse of what it would give us, like the taster. Then it went back into Pisces, where it is technically domicile, if we're again believing the line of modern astrology. But actually, Neptune in Aries for 14 years is going to stay there. So we don't get an out. It's not going to be like, hey, I'm going to go back for a minute. It's going to stay there. Neptune in Aries is a very, in my opinion, difficult placement. The reason being is that Neptune is very illusory. It's quite creative. It's like in the weird. Every time I think about Neptune, I just want to float about, right? Aries is a raging bull, okay? You know me, I love Aries. It's one of my favorite zodiac signs. I will always give it complexity. It's not always aggressive. It's very vulnerable, actually. It's very funny. There's lots of things to it. But if we're looking at it from a, I'm going to analyze this thematically, it's quite aggressive. Neptune is very slow. Some might say lazy, right? And Aries is very fast-paced, impatient. So I always say Neptune and Saturn in Aries, for example, is like trying to put a lasso on a bull and trying to pull it back, and you're not getting much luck. It's like the rope's going to snap and you're like, I'm not going to do this very well. So Neptune in Aries can be difficult. For the world, again, I'm going to do a separate video on this, and I don't want to rant too much at the start of this video because people get bored and click off, but it's important to talk about. For the world, this is going to mean an enhancement in the misuse of AI, because Neptune is so illusory. So it's really who and what is real, a truth that cannot be denied. I always think about that song, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. The truth cannot be denied, right? So that's really important. Digital ID, especially in the UK. As part of this weekly horoscope series, I'm going to start doing some sections on the UK and the US. I don't mean to discredit or to leave out any other countries, because I don't want to be like, oh, you're taking a white Western view on this. It's because these are countries that I know the most about from my research. If you think there's a country that you would love to have some research on as part of the series, let me know. The reason being I'm not doing every country is because I'm going to be here forever, right? So I'm selecting the ones that I know the most about. But if you're like, I'd really like some diversity in this series, we'd like this country, just let me know. I'm happy to do that. But the UK and the US are the kind of countries that I have the most focus on with research and what I know the most about. And that's why I'm choosing that, specifically because I'm from the UK, I'm in the UK, I'm very interested in the politics here. And then of course the US, as such a big superpower, its decisions affect everybody. I could also do a series on Ukraine, Russia, Venezuela, that kind of thing. So it just depends what you want to see. But that's also going to be affected. Digital ID was introduced last year in the UK, and it had quite a stink about it. But also I think that's going to be really important, because Aries is all about independence and identity, protection of the self. So that's going to become important, especially with AI misuse, because of things like deep fakes, what is real. I mean, I can't tell the difference between, an AI video sometimes. I think I'm no better than like a grandma that doesn't know the difference between what's going on. And Neptune as a planet, it's very scammy. So you get scammed very easily. And again, it's about what is real and what is not. A certain level of independence. I think also a need for authenticity in relationships, particularly intimacy. Who are you giving your intimacy to? Who are you trusting that with? Because Aries actually is associated with big platforms like OnlyFans, for example, and these adult sites, and which in the UK we had this ID introduction to protect children. And so if you want to go on a particular site, you've got to put your ID in. So stuff like that will start ramping up. And of course, with Pluto being in Aquarius, the truth that cannot be denied is in fact exposed. And a big example of this, for example, is the week we just had passing, or maybe when you're watching this video for the new week, is all this Aquarius energy in which there's a lot of celebrity scandal. The Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case, the Beckhams, I did a video on this, and how I said it was really not a coincidence, because Mars is playing such a big pivotal role in that. So Aquarius is always going to expose things. Neptune just kind of gets you to discern things, but you have to really learn that discernment. So that's one of the big things that's happening this week. So the next big transit happening this week is actually February the 1st. We have a full moon in Leo, and we have a lot of fixed sign energy in February. It's actually pretty wild, which culminates with the solar eclipse in Aquarius. So this full moon is really about releasing a lot of drama, a lot of the energy, funny enough with Neptune going into Aries, that we have let into our lives and it's deceiving us. But ultimately, it's very powerful full moon. It's kind of like, I want to get rid of this drama so I can have some fun. This is in my 8th house, so I already know what this is about. But also not letting the hibernation of winter fool you. If you're like one of my gorgeous Aussies, because I've just been to Australia, I'm very aware now that I'm like, sometimes it's summer, but if you're in summer, then you're like, oh yeah, I'm letting go of the drama so I can have a fun summer. For us, it's like in the northern hemisphere, we're focusing on releasing the drama so we can actually emerge into the light. And I'm going to do a separate video on this full moon as well. So those are sort of main themes that are happening for this particular week. So I just want to add on to the US-UK themes that I've been talking about. So Neptune going into Aries for the UK as a Libra rising is going to affect the 7th house, which is all about partnerships and diplomacy. Really very interesting that it's hitting a house of diplomacy for the next 14 years. When Saturn enters Aries as well, it's going to cause some constriction and boundaries. We could see a lot of issues with diplomacy, with people saying things, and it's like, oh, what did you just call me? Oh, well, and I think the UK does that quite well, and that there's always someone taking shots, and there's always someone going, well, you can't say that about us, and then it becomes very childish, and we're like, this is really quite embarrassing and pathetic, right? So in that 7th house of partnerships, signing contracts, getting to work with people, these are where pivotal contracts get signed, especially for military defense. But I really see it as we must clamour and work together. The UK will realise who is on its side. The 7th house is the house of open enemies. It will see what's coming at it. But at the same time, it's going to struggle with the feeling of, I thought you were an ally and you're not. If we bring into issues surrounding NATO, for example, especially with Ukraine, Russia, what's going on in the US right now, it all becomes a mixed pot. I'm being very vague here because I will do separate videos on what I really think about this particularly, probably in my Neptune and Aries video. But just be mindful that there is going to be a lot of, a lot of mist over the mirror when it comes to who the UK can actually trust. I think every country probably feels that way, but particularly because there's been a lot of relationships and ties that have been cut in that particular country. The US has a slightly different take on it with Neptune and Aries. This is actually more of a we want to have fun and we want it now, so this is when the drudgery, the issues that the US is having really comes to a head. There has been for quite some time the threat of civil war in the US. When we have a Mars-Uranus conjunction in Gemini in the summer, it's really going to hit its peak because Mars, Uranus, particularly in Gemini, not just generally, in Gemini, have always coincided with either the start or the endings of a particular type of civil war or uprising in the US. And I think we're really going to see that. Cost of living crisis, issues with, that particular government wanting to take countries. All this kind of energy is going to be very difficult, okay? So when the US has Neptune and Aries in its 5th house, the external events that it has to react to is really this energy of trying to create something new, trying to really create a certain level of independence that it wants. I mean, the US is known as being independent, right? Independent is like, we're July 4th, independence. But the US in that 5th house may really struggle with, that uprising of we want to have fun and I do not want to be constricted, because 5th house is all about expression. I want to express myself. I can't express myself if, for example, I'm not able to work with the people that I want to. You could even see the US wanting to be a strong ally to the UK, but it cannot express itself because these two countries are not allowing themselves to have freedom of speech with each other. Okay, so I could see that being an issue and element with Neptune and Aries. The bigger thing that I also want to add, but again, I'm going to talk about all this in the Neptune and Aries video, is the fact that Neptune rules over gas and oil. And I really think the play to Venezuela, the play to Greenland, obviously the play to Greenland, is really all about minerals and energy. So it's always about something like that, It's never about, oh, well, so-and-so said this and we're trying to save the people of this country. No, you want the oil. Right, so Neptune playing that part, it's so strong here. Aries is also much more about biological warfare as well, and then you mix Neptune, which is a little bit more like chemical warfare. I always say these two together are not great because Neptune is the spread of something, and when you put it in a sign that likes to have war, it's like the spread of, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to fearmonger, that's not what I do. We had Neptune Aries last year, we didn't have war, but what I'm trying to point out is the startings, the seedlings of things that we really should start looking out for. And I don't want to be reductionist in any of the things I'm saying, because I understand I'm coming off very vague and people are like, well, anything, it's a massive country, anything could be applied, which is totally fine. I really agree with that. I just want to talk about major things that we're seeing in the media, and the reason why is because Neptune is an outer planet, which we see things in the media. That's why I want to talk about that. Okay, so let's talk about what this means for your sign in particular. You can watch for Sun, Moon or Rising, but I am gearing this more towards a rising sign, and we should always be watching for a rising sign, but I understand that some people don't know it, or they just don't really resonate with it, so do what's best for you, but I do want to put that out there because some people will watch for their sun sign and say, it doesn't resonate. I'm like, you should be watching for your rising sign, really. So if you are in Aries, Sun, Moon or Rising, January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in your 1st house. Again, quite pivotal for the external events that you're going to be presented with, not necessarily your personality. Of course, when we have a planet of inspiration, manifestation and illusion entering your 1st house, there's a sense that events will be presented to you that make you change your identity. This is when there's really big things happening. So, broken systems that have to be replaced, challenging old belief systems, people in your life come and go, marking a new era. So do not be surprised if people leave your life as quickly as they entered, if you have to, dismantle something in your career to be able to create something new, or you feel like you have to take on responsibility. In that 1st house of self, it's the way that you're presenting to the world. So in this regard, people can somewhat feel they know you, but they don't. So be mindful that people may have a perception about you that you ultimately are like, yeah, that's not me, okay? Let people think what they're going to think. People are always going to think about you in a different way. When I do these videos, people assume things about me where I'm like, you couldn't be more wrong. I had someone say, you're clearly from this place. And I said, I don't even know what that place is. I had to Google it, right? So people have their opinions about you and they're dead set that this is who you are. And actually it's like, no. As someone who's got Neptune in their first house natally, people always have an image of me that's not real. And I have an image of other people that are not real, you know? So when they get to know me, they're like, oh, interesting. Not in a bad way, but they're like, oh, there's more mystery than I thought originally. And it's like, yeah, because sometimes you can present as being almost very simple. Sometimes it's the opposite. You present as mysterious. You attract those people that want the mystery. And then when they get to know you, it's like, oh, and then you decided to villainize me for what you already knew was the truth, which is that you're this type of person, right? So be mindful that that energy is going to be concentrated on you. It's for the next 14 years. It's also going to be slow moving as well. So it's going to take some time to get through all the degrees in which it may be interacting with your chart. Remember, this is all based on a rising sign. So you need to look at your birth chart to see how it's really going to play a part. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 11th. This is a transit that has a lot of people's shackles up. The reason being is that when Mars is conjunct Pluto, it causes a lot of aggression. So this is where you really have to change things up. It's very innovative. I could see this, again, with Pluto being an external planet, Mars being more internal, a lot of rage and frustration surrounding politics, you know, particularly like what are we doing that's allowing us to grow? For you personally, this is in your 11th house. So this is about the change that you want to see in the world, but also in your immediate social circle, your friendships. You are the people in your life that you have around you. You know, birds of a feather flock together, that kind of thing. So if you have people in your life that are bad company, what does that say about you and association? Because remember, now Neptune is in Aries in your first house. Who you associate with is going to be of importance. On the 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 11th house. So this is very social, creates a very strong sense of community. It's very easy to connect with people in your life, friends, mentors, even neighbors, like the postman, for example, being like, hi, how are you? And showing that you are grateful for the people that you have in your life because you've assessed that on the 27th. So the people that you love, the people that you are interacting with on the daily, the people that you want to help and that you want to be helped by, it's really about being grateful for them on this particular day. February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 5th house. So the full moon in Leo is all about releasing, but also it's a very personal release. You know, Leo rules the heart and the body. So it's always where you take things more personally, but also it's about these big emotions, this really powerful energy. In the 5th house, it's also expressive. And it feels that in that regard, because it's so expressive, it's about releasing something that's been containing you. Maybe you've not been able to really get things down. Also wanting to focus more on what you enjoy, not what others are trying to put onto you. Again, there's a sense of having to work with others this week. It depends what kind of placements you have in your chart, but normally Aries rising find that quite difficult because they're very independent. But actually you're being called upon to assess the people in your life and what you enjoy. It could also be releasing a situationship or someone that you had some dates with because it just doesn't feel right for you. If you are a Taurus, you're going to have a pretty big month actually in February, so kind of prep yourself for it. You know, Uranus going direct in Taurus with a solar eclipse in Aquarius and Mars in Aquarius. A lot of the energy you're fighting for career, you're going to have to really change things up. It's going to be quite pivotal for you, but it gets you moving. You're going to get out of that stagnancy that maybe Taurus is sometimes like to be like rooted, but it's going to be like, whoa, we are literally like swaying in the wind. The roots are starting to come out the ground. But for this week particularly, January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 12th house. This is quite pivotal. So Neptune actually rules the 12th house. If you are, you know, again, more interested in traditional astrology, you might be like, nah, I don't give credence to this. But Neptune does rule the 12th house. And in Aries, there's going to be a sense of the illusions, manifestations, and inspirations that you have being reassessed. It's a very lazy house, and when you have Aries that is very strong, it's very independent, it's very impatient in a lazy, I just want to take my time and think about things, it's difficult, right? It's kind of like Billy Idol meets Buddha. I actually quite like that, Billy Idol meets Buddha. Oh, I like that, I should put on that t-shirt. That's the energy. But what is most difficult here is that the illusions that you have about your life, about people around you, they get dismantled. Remember that Neptune will not be something that hits you personally in your personality. It will be an external event that you're presented with. So that is when you have something like a person, a particular institution that may put something on you, challenge you, and you have to try to break that system down, pioneer a better system, and mark a new era for yourself. Ultimately, the reason why I'm being a bit about this is because the 12th house is a house of hidden enemies. So when you have illusions about hidden enemies, it's very easy to get scammed. It's very easy to have people being invited into your life that are not the right people. So it's all about discernment for you, Taurus, okay? Be a little bit more rigid with your your requirements for people, right? So it's like, you want to be my friend, I need to know a bit more about you. If you want to date me, not on the first date, so just be a little bit more I don't want to say distrusting, but a little bit more cautious might be the word. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 10th house. This is a particular aspect that is quite challenging for the world, particularly because of that Pluto energy. But actually in the 10th house, this is really innovative. It gets you to start over or assess something. I can imagine in my head, because I get visions sometimes when I do these things, I can imagine like having a load of papers on a desk and you're like, I need to try something else. Like, this is not going to work. And it can be very angry. Remember, Mars in Aquarius is very innovative, but in the 10th house, you can get very angry over a boss or something that you're doing. So be mindful of that. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius. So this is actually pretty nice. It's very harmonious for working with others and showing that you're grateful for what you have, especially if sometimes you've had a difficult time like January the 27th where you've been angry, there's aggression. You might say to yourself, well, what am I grateful for? What can I start moving forward with? And actually cultivating a little bit more of who can I have in my immediate vicinity that can help, a mentor at work. Maybe I can ask a friend to help me with a project. It's all about calling around the people around you to help with you as a person, putting yourself out there. February the 1st, full moon in Leo in the 4th house. This is a release of something to do with home and family. So this could be, an argument or a particular theme you have with a family member. This could also be releasing something in the home. So you could be getting rid of something, chucking away the TV, that kind of thing. Also, you could be like signing something off. But I would also say this is a private sanctuary kind of energy too. So be mindful that you might be releasing a particular belief that you've had about yourself. And I would say, for some reason, I'm getting the word cold, like a cold idea you have, because Leo is warm. When I move towards the warmth, it's very dramatic, it's very personal. This is something that's weighing heavy on your heart that you need to release. Very big week for you, Taurus, and it's actually almost like prepping you for the really big month that you'll have in February. So get yourself ready for that. If you are a Gemini, then January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 11th house. It will stay there for 14 years. So Neptune in Aries in the 11th house is really going to push you to understand and discern who is really on your side. Your friendships, neighbors, people that you work with, mentors. Who is really there for you? Who's in your corner? This is the start of a new era for you where you challenge these old belief systems that you have about people, but also about yourself. Remember that this is going to coincide this year with Uranus being in Gemini in your first house. So a lot of feelings about who you have around you and who you are as a person, how that is interacting with each other. Right? Pioneering better people. Remember, the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius, so that's all about humanitarianism, social community, and Neptune is a very illusory planet, so it can sometimes shed a lot of truth but also a lot of lies, so you have to discern who and what is really on your side. You might also find that there is an energy of manifestation here that's really nice for you. It's very impatient though, so you might be like, I want it now, I want my dreams now, but there's an understanding that good things take time to come to you, and that sometimes rejection is redirection, and there is a need to be a little bit more patient than you have been, and which is Gemini's hard because you want to be stimulated constantly, right? So more patience. January the 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 9th house. This is really the energy of wanting to change things up in your life. There's a lot of 9th house energy coming to you, and that's really about, philosophy. I think Geminis love to chat for the sake of it, and I love Gemini, one of my favourite signs, so don't take that as an insult. It's really all about the spirituality and philosophy of yourself, and really what you're thinking about when it comes to people around you, specifically focusing on the need to break out of a particular system, you know, a rigid routine that you have. Mars conjunct Pluto is very like, I'm going to start a fight. So sometimes that can be quite a violent breakout. So if you're feeling very violent on this day, remember that the violence should be promoting growth and not destruction. January the 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 9th house. It's a very similar energy, but actually much nicer because it's more social, it's more collaborative, there's more harmony. But the reason why I'm saying it's similar is because it's the same theme, you know, it's about philosophy, spirituality, wanting to learn something new, perhaps trying to show your gratitude for all the amazing things that you're presented with in the world. There's so much stuff for us to learn. There's so many things that we can do. There's so many languages to learn and hobbies to do. And we should be super grateful for that. So sometimes it's about, you know, recentering ourselves to that gratitude. February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 3rd house, which is the house that Gemini rules. So this is really lovely in that we can release something that has been weighing us down quite personally on the heart. This can be a particular relationship in our life where we've had some difficult communication, and we could be saying, let's just put this aside. I don't want to have this fight anymore, this argument. It's just kind of silly. I've had my 9th house energy to think about this, and actually there's bigger things to deal with in the world. Let's just not do this anymore. You could be finalizing the plans for a short trip or even coming back from a short trip. You could also be handing in an assignment or an essay if you're studying, because it is marking season right now. And so this particular energy is like, I'm getting rid of something that's weighed down on me quite personally. And so it's not just a, oh, flippant full moon. It's like, this has real meaning to it. If you are a Cancer, January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 10th house as a cardinal sign. Be mindful because this is going to hit you. It's going to square. So Neptune entering Aries in the 10th house is going to really break down the illusions about what your career is saying about you. If you're watching and you're retired, this is much more about the way that you want to present yourself to the public, how the public see you as someone who's retired, you know, the kind of back and forth of reputation, really. But you know, for most people watching, I'm just going to assume that you do have a career, you have some kind of project that you're probably working on. So because of that, for the next 14 years, there's going to be illusions that are stripped down. So you could have been working in a particular career field for a very long time and find that this is not the career field that you want for you. Working for an institution that doesn't care about you, sees you as a statistic and not as a person, and you think, well, where do I go now? I've given, 20 years of my life to this place, and actually they don't give a shit. You know, so it's about a new era. We're challenging old, broken, you know, decrepit systems and actually trying to pioneer better ones. You can have a pivotal role in trying to change something in an organization that you work in. If you work for yourself, for example, how you want to change the landscape, whatever field you're working in. But also there's a sense that you could be manifesting something really, really important. You're manifesting leadership, taking the reins of your own life. This is not an energy of sitting back and letting things happen to you. Although Neptune is external, in which, you know, events get presented to you, you're not passive, right? This is the time to be very, very active. And although Neptune is going to be in Aries for 14 years, this coincides with Jupiter being in your 1st house. So you have the agency there to start putting things in place. I'm going to do a separate video on this, of course, but I would say that there's going to be some big change with your reputation, publicity, the way that you're presenting yourself to the world. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 8th house. Woo! Yeah, this is quite a difficult transit for the world politically, I've been saying. And I've been mindful of saying, don't do anything too dramatic, you know, don't be going out to like a party and drinking a load of stuff on this kind of night. If you are, you know, I know if you're like, hey, I want to come over tonight, I just wouldn't. Could be a little bit dodgy, you know. I don't want to fearmonger, but I'm like, I get my shackles about stuff like this, especially in the 8th house. You might also find that you are really wanting to change up the way that you invest and you save money. And actually the way that you are working on your self-growth, because there's a lot of growth energy in this transit, and you have to remember that growth is not like a straight line. Sometimes we go like this, sometimes we actually go back. It's really important to know that as long as we try, we're doing pretty good. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 8th house. This is much nicer, more harmonious. There's a sense of intimacy here, not sexually, but like we're working with a community, we feel we're part of something. You feel that you're part of something on this day. And if you don't feel like this right now, is there a way that you can try to feel part of something? You know, speak to a neighbor, start being more social. This is a really like silly way of looking at it, but it's a good way of talking about how astrology can be small, subtle things. I've had a similar kind of energy in my chart recently, and I've been much more open to talking to people. And there's a person that I see all the time smoking outside where I live, and I never speak to him. And yesterday I just went, hey, how you doing? And he was like so shocked that I was speaking to him, but his like face lit up. He was like, oh my God. And I was like, you know, we had a nice chat, but it was because it's so much easier for me to just walk by and ignore him and be like, gonna be antisocial. But I was like, hey, how you doing? And you know, it was really nice. And actually, and then he came back later in the day and I saw him again and he was like, and then we talked to each other. So sometimes we can be very in ourselves, and the 8th house can be very like private. I don't want to share things. And actually I think it does promote us to be a little bit more like, let's be outside the box. All that Aquarius energy, which is very social. So it can be small things like that to help. February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 2nd house. So this is getting rid of something or releasing something that's weighed very heavily on your heart. This could actually be selling something like an asset. You could be selling like a car or something that has a significant amount of value to it. You could be paying off a debt particularly, especially because the 8th house often deals with things like debts and shared debts. And then the 2nd house is finance. So it could be more of a financial week for you. Again, take what resonates, because this is going to be different for everybody depending on the chart. And I always say that, because some people say this is not accurate, and I'm like, let me read your chart. Go here, you know. So it can be financial. It can also be releasing something in which you felt that you've been blindsided. You quite literally had the rug pulled out from under you, and that can be important too. Remember that Leo rules the heart, so it's something that you're like, feel like my heart is a bit lighter now, so it's a bit more personal. It's not so flippant. If you are a Leo, then January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 9th house. So Neptune in the 9th house, I think these actually work well together, because Neptune is about manifestation, illusion, and really assessing what is real. And the 9th house is very philosophical and very spiritual. So I feel like these two go hand in hand when it comes to inspiration and thought. But as always, this is going to be breaking down the illusions and the old systems around, you know, your life. So you get a little bit more spiritual, a bit more philosophical. I can see you saying, why does it have to be this way? You know, if you come back from holiday, people go, oh, welcome back to reality. You might be like, why is it got to be like that? I don't necessarily want it to be like that. You could also find that you become very disillusioned with academic systems if you're studying. You might be like, this doesn't make any sense. You know, I'm working 4 years to get a degree that isn't going to help me get a job. I'm fed up. This is silly. You know, you even apply that to your career as well, and saying, you know, I'm not learning anything here. Sorry, that's a very loud train. You know, I'm not learning anything here. I'm going to do a separate video on this as well, so you know, forgive me if I'm being quite short here, but it's really about pioneering something better. And traditionally the 9th house is the house of God, so in that regard it's about looking for something that has meaning, something that means something, but it's very hard to find something that has meaning when you don't know if it has truth. There's one to sit with. January the 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in your 7th house. So be mindful that all this Aquarius energy is in your 7th house. This is about growth and understanding and trying to work with others, but there's a lot of aggression here, and it's very openly playing in your face, a kind of aggression. This could be, I knew you were that kind of girl. I just knew you were. For the world, I'm always like, weird with this one, but it's about changing things up very innovatively. If you're working with a large group of people, you might be putting your foot down and saying, no, I don't play that way. And remember that sometimes things can come to us like this, they don't come to us like this. There could be some power struggles with relationships. If you have a current relationship, it could be that you are the person that is having a struggle, and then this person is not understanding, and then it's a clash, particularly a male in your life. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 7th house, which is much nicer. I mean, Venus being in the 7th house already brings a lot of harmony to relationships and collaboration, which is great. And then being in Aquarius, it's much more social. So this is when we're like, I'm really grateful for the people I have around me that I can work with, that I'm not on my own. If you feel like you're a bit more isolated, try and push yourself out of that. Speak to a neighbor. Say, hi, how are you, down the street, and get that kind of like energy flowing in that 7th house as well. This is also the energy of telling someone that you love them or being a bit more open. If you haven't been before, you're scared to, just say, you know, oh, you make my heart flutter, something nice. I don't know, something very loving and nice. You know, I write poetry as my way of love, because I'm like, if I say it out loud, I'm like, ugh, God, I'm such a loser. So then I write it down and then I'm like, read that, and then promptly watch them run away. So that's how it goes. February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 1st house. So your particular moon, February's going to be pretty major for you, because we also have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in February, which is going to be in your 7th house, which is like, oh my God. I do have eclipse readings open if you're interested and want to know. They're actually super cheap. They're on sale. So they're about 30 quid, which is about $45 or maybe about 35 euros. So not expensive. And they kind of break down how the eclipse is going to affect you. But this particular full moon is a release of, you know, a particular status or identity that you've cultivated. Actually, weirdly enough, I've been speaking to a lot of people who've been like, I've not hit the ground running with my New Year's resolutions in January. I felt super tired. I've not really felt like I'm in it. And I've felt the same, maybe because I was traveling, but I'm like, I don't feel that energy. So you could be releasing some old stagnant energy from 2025 and then really moving into what you want to with February, because that's where you're going to have to fight for this new identity, fight for your right to be here, as it were. Leo rules the heart, the physical heart. So it's something that's very personal to you. You could also be changing up your appearance as well, and maybe like, I want to try new stuff, that kind of thing. If you are a Virgo, then January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 8th house. You might be quite happy that Neptune's left your 7th house in Pisces. Now hits the 8th, which I don't think is necessarily any better, actually. So, you know, if people are saying, hey, it's not your 7th house anymore, need to reassess the multitude and plethora of themes that the 8th house brings as well. It's not necessarily something to be worried about, but it's definitely something to be, mindful of, consider of. So Neptune is about illusion, it can be about manifestation, but it's also a what is real and what is not. Entering a house that's very hidden, doesn't necessarily like to expose the truth too much. When you have that, it can be, who is actually telling the truth here? Why have you held this back for so long? You could find that actually there are some lies that are getting exposed, or the illusion of a person in your life, especially like a romantic, intimate connection. I often think Neptune in Aries particularly, and the 8th house, is about, I got very obsessed with this person, now I realise the reality of it is so different. I don't know if you've ever seen the show You, but the character Love, she said, you saw what you wanted to see, this perfect curated girl, and that's just not that's not who I am. And I always think that's when you start to see that. So relationships in your life, not necessarily like going to be terrible, but you could find that you just think, why did I never see this in front of me before? For some of you, it's not enough to break up or have any issues. For others, it's like, yeah, actually, I think I have been duped. I duped myself perhaps, and maybe I need to start reevaluating who I do have in my life. You could also have some tendencies to get scammed with money as well, or some of those get rich quick schemes, so be mindful of that, because you cannot really get rich quick from crypto or all this bullshit. It's silly, it's really silly. So be mindful that you could get scammed during this, but it's also the start of a new era in which you transform, because the 8th house is definitely about personal transmogrification, transformation and alchemy. So that's when you're challenging old broken systems of you as a person and then moving forward. Remember that this is the last year of having the Virgo Pisces eclipses for you, so you're not only leveling up in your identity, but you are releasing old ways of being. And so it really feels like you are almost seeking some peace with Neptune being in Aries. It's going to be there for 14 years, so it's not like, hey, I'll get the peace now, but you're on that, emerging journey. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 6th house. Could feel quite aggressive on this day. If you do feel like you have excess amount of energy or you feel annoyed, really take it out in the gym if that's possible, if you're able to. Because it's one of those energies of, I need to change things now. You could actually, for a select few of you, wake up and think, I can't go on the way I have been. I need to, get stronger. I need to maybe lose some weight. Maybe I need to put some weight on. Whatever your position is, because what is going on with your physical body, with the way that you are interacting with your body, it's just not working. So it's very much like things have to change, and they have to change now. It could also be about your routine as well, which is either boring or it's too busy. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 6th house, which is a little bit more harmonious. This is good for working with others, particularly co-workers and people in teams. If you are presenting to a team, this could be quite good. And you're getting your point across, you're innovating. If you are trying to do things differently with the gym, with people that you're working with, get it done now. Don't keep any of your really exciting, intelligent ideas, because you're super intelligent, Virgo, I mean, duh. Keep those ideas locked down. Let them out. Let people see your ideas, because it's important. February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 12th house. This is a release of something quite personal that's really weighing on your heart heavily, something very spiritual, something that you've hidden and really pushed down. An illusion itself, actually. Now Neptune's in Aries, you might be like, yeah, I got to release that illusion. It's very much a sense of you can't put the smoke in my eyes anymore, you know? What's the phrase? So you can't pull the rug from under me? Something like that. You can't dupe me, basically. So you're releasing that energy. And actually, for you, this is a good release, because we're prepping ourselves as we start moving towards the March lunar eclipse in your 1st house, in which you'll be like super Cyan, new identity, right? If you are a Libra, January 26th, we have Neptune entering Aries in the 7th house. Really important for you as a cardinal sign, because this is going to oppose your sign, your rising sign. And oppositions can be very difficult, as you know. And the reason being that this is going to be, this could be quite difficult, could be quite good at the same time. I'm very much a nuanced astrologer, so I never think anything's wholly good nor bad, you know. Not to sound very Lex Luthor from Superman, but like, it's like, can it be good, can it be bad? Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. We don't want to be black and white here. Neptune is about illusion, fantasy. It's about what is real, who is real. There's mark of a new era here for 14 years. We had this briefly last year, so it's not like this is completely new. You did have a little bit of a stint here. You had a bit of a test drive of it. The 7th house is the house of love, commitment and partnerships, but also contracts when we're working in teams, being collaboration, but also open enemies. And therefore we see that people are playing in our faces. You could have issues where you can't discern that, and so then somebody comes into your life and then you're like, oh, you played me, and it was so obviously right in my face, you know, the red flags were all there. So discernment is really important, Libra. Secondly, this is giving dark romance fantasy novel. Oh my god, aren't they perfect? Isn't she perfect? Isn't he perfect? Oh my god. And then they're not. We see what we want to see. If you've got Virgo placements as well, oh yeah, we're really seeing what we want to see here. So just be mindful of that, because it can be you're looking for the one. I'm not a maybe, I'm the one, as Joe Garbog says. So because of that, you might find that it's much harder to have a healthy living relationship because you're looking for that one. Again, I'm going to get someone say, I can't believe she just said I'm never going to have a good relationship. I don't mean it like that. Come on. You know, it depends on your chart and who you are as a person. But my point is I'm giving you cautionary tales so that you can avoid these issues, because I want to help. And the reason why I'm saying it is because it's very easy to fall into the trap of they're the one. I know I'm speaking from personal experience here. Like, I never say anything to someone else that I haven't already been through or that I know about, right? I'm never judging anybody. I've got no right to judge. My point is that you need to look at a person for what they are. It's a bit more boring. Of course it's boring, but it's going to save you the anguish of, I thought they were the one. Now I'm playing Taylor Swift songs and really relating to the lyrics. You know, that kind of thing. Interestingly, it's also dealing with, you know, people that you're working with, collaboration, diplomacy. Actually, at the start of this video, if you watched, because some people have skipped to this bit, but if you watched, I talked about how the UK is a Libra rising, and so there can be some issues with who you're collaborating with, diplomacy, having issues in which it's like, oh, I thought I was going to work with you, you're going to be an ally, you're going to be a friend, you're going to be a co-worker, and you're not, you know? There is just much more energy to be duped here because of the opposition, because of a very foggy, smoke on the mirror type of planet being in the 7th house. Remember, it's a external generational planet, so it's not going to affect your personality or personally. It's much more an event that comes to you. For example, meeting somebody, and that you have to then react to the situation that person brings to you, for example. And also pioneering, a better way of living, a better way of committing to healthy relationships, a better way of working with others, that kind of thing. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 5th house. So we do have that Aquarius energy, the 5th house, which is very flirty and fun. This could be a little bit frustrating. This could be specifically with the male figure in your life, could be a male authority figure or a male relationship. Just having a bit of aggression and difficulty there, wanting to change something, wanting to grow, but feeling like there's something in the way of you growing. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 5th house. Much nicer. Venus in Aqua in the 5th house. Flirty and fun. Much more social, and quite a nice time to tell somebody that you like them, to express yourself, and to express yourself in a way that you wouldn't normally. So for example, if your way of expressing yourself is writing stuff down or texting, you might actually want to say it vocally. Or you might want to, be more acts of service if you're more words of affirmation, and vice versa, and changing it up a little bit more, finding that that's actually going to be good. February the 1st, full moon in Leo in the 11th house. So this is a release of something that's weighed down you quite personally. You could be releasing a friendship and being like, this friendship's not working for me anymore. Like, you hardly ever speak to me. This is not going to work. You could also be releasing an energy of which you're getting in the way of your dream life. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when we have a full moon, particularly in Leo, which is very social and dramatic, in the 11th house, it's like, why am I being so antisocial for the sake of it? What am I protecting myself from? So you might want to release the feelings of, I'm protecting myself from embarrassment and rejection, and actually saying, so what? I might get rejected. I might have these issues. Who cares? I'm just going to keep going for it, right? So that's the energy for this week, Libra. If you are a Scorpio, then January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in your 6th house. So Neptune is going to be in Aries for 14 years. And so this is a slower moving generational planet, which does not affect your personality, but affects external events that you are presented with. In the 6th house, this can be a change of environment. So for example, if you work in an office currently, it might be that you get to do hybrid working or vice versa. You might also decide that the company that you're working with is being too rigid. And so you try to propose something new, and then, actually, we have got this hybrid working policy. You could also, for example, change businesses, move for career, change up the people that you're working with, have a new set of co-workers come to you, or a new set of clients, depending on what you do. It's also be a new era in which you have stopped fooling yourself, and that you're like, I need to change up my health. Maybe getting to a certain age or a certain, era in your life where you're like, my knees don't work like they used to. And I really got to stop putting in the work to be more healthy, to be more, motivated, to be a little bit more, a little bit more disciplined with my health, and finding that's actually quite important. And also funny enough, because this is going to be for the next 14 years, some of you may also be acquiring a pet, like a dog, for example, that actually will probably live the stretch of Neptune being in Aries for a select few of you. We'll be doing a separate video on this as well, so forgive me if I'm a little bit more sort of flippant about this. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 4th house. Could be some intense anger and things need to change in the home and family. Definitely a feeling of, I need to shed something and we've got to start over. So this could be quite literally having a disagreement with a family member, or saying like, that really, really hideous thing we've got in the house? I don't want it there, get rid of it. Actually, knock through the damn wall. There's too much. No, there's not enough space. We need more light in the room, So that's the kind of energy that comes through here. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 4th house. Much more nicer, more harmonious energy than the 27th. But it's only because of the 27th that you're able to actually have a better 29th, because you've analysed some of the issues that you've got going on in home and family. Show your gratitude for what you do have, for having a roof over your head, for your family. Sometimes we have to be like, I'm really going to be grateful for what I have, and hope that manifests into more gratitude, more desire, more light. February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 10th house. So this is a very personal release that's weighed heavily on your heart, maybe quite dramatic at times, in the 10th house. So some of you could be, not all, again, take what resonates, could be leaving a job or finishing up a very important project and saying, I want to move on to something else. But things are about to get a little bit more emotional here, and particularly for you, because you are a fixed sign Scorpio, February is going to be important because of that solar eclipse in Aquarius. Uranus going direct in Taurus. There's a lot of energy which is going to square your sign. So be mindful that we're prepping ourselves for putting ourselves in a strong position, because we're going to need to weather a storm coming up. So not to scare you, but just saying, get yourself rooted. And Scorpios are so strong, like, come on, I don't think you've even blink now if something happens to them. So you're more than ready for this. If you are a Sagittarius like moi, then January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 5th house. So Neptune in the 5th house is interesting, actually. As a Sagittarius rising, you have the same rising sign as the US, which is what I talked about at the start of this video. So Neptune in Aries in the 5th house is really about the illusions that you have around expression and how you're expressing yourself, about romance, about birth and children, and basically newness, right? The 5th house is very much about newness and spring and fertility and just blossoming. So that's really interesting when it comes to the mark of a new era of this planet being in Aries for 14 years now, to break down those old systems in which you're not able to express yourself, the things that are trying to hold us back, to basically oppress us, right? So we're pioneering something better here. You might also find that when this Neptune energy meets up with Saturn in February, that this could be a beautiful new mark of a relationship for you, something blossoming. There's a lot of fertile energy here, but again, check your personal chart, that's not a guarantee. But also I think this could be the illusion of I'm going to have a really fantastic relationship, and you need to see that sometimes the reality of a person is pretty dark. You know, we can't always be really perfect, and we need to assess that. I'm going to do a longer video on this, so forgive me for being very flippant. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 3rd house. So this can be quite frustrating, could be quite an angry conversation with somebody, or this needs to end, I can't do this anymore. For some of you, it could be either I don't want to have this kind of conversation again, or I don't want to have conversation with you, full stop. You know, there's just a lot of anger, specifically with like a male in your life. Could be an authority figure, could be a relationship, father, that kind of thing. But also you might find that your response really marks how much growth you've put in the past few years. So if you are someone who's more anxious, more avoidant, and you have a response that you're like, oh, you know what? The outcome was not great, but my response was good. I've really grown. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 3rd house. Much nicer, more harmonious. This is actually great for delivering a presentation, a very innovative presentation at work, perhaps, or study, and saying, I'm going to do something new and different, even giving in an essay, that's really good. But also showing your gratitude for people in your life, like neighbours and whatnot. Jesus Christ, I've got light here, we've got sun here. Okay, February the 1st, forming in Leo in the 9th house. This is a release of something that's weighed heavily on your heart, and you're like, I just need to release this. Could be a particular belief system, or being like, I can't hold on to this hope anymore, and it's just not going to work. You could be handing in an essay or an assignment, for example. Or you could be finishing up a presentation that you gave on the 29th perhaps, and it's like, okay, I don't need to do this anymore, or prepping that kind of energy. Again, it depends on you as a person. I'm being quite sort of vague here because there's quite a few things this could mean for you. Again, these are quite general videos, but it's going to make you feel quite emotional, and it will feel very cathartic for you. If you are a Capricorn rising like myself, then January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 4th house. Why? The reason I say why is that I literally am having so many issues in this particular house right now, and that fact that Saturn is also going to go there, I'm like, why? No. So Neptune is a slower moving generational planet, as I've mentioned at the start of this video, and it will affect external events. So for example, a landlord coming to you and say, hey, I'm going to sell, and you're like, oh, it doesn't affect you personally. It's not like a personal thing. It's not like they hate you. It's not a personality trait, but it's an external event that you have to react to. It's like, okay, I need to do something about this. And this can also affect something like family members as well, like family members changing, and it could also be like the illusions that you break down about family. What does family mean to you? You know, do you have to create a new family? What is real? You could also have the feeling that, you know, this person in my life and my family member, I actually realize that maybe I don't feel this way about them. Maybe there's resentment there, or maybe there's an issue that I need to work through, or maybe it's like, have I been duping myself? Have I been like you know, is there a lie going on there, right? And also there could be some issues with thinking that you found a perfect home and it's not the perfect home. So really look at the reality of things and use discernment. Also, I moved myself so the sun wouldn't come out, and the sun has moved out. Great. I keep having to move around to the point where I'm going to just be moving 360 around the room because of the sun. So January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is actually conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the second house. Could be something angry here related to finances. Again, I'm like, why? I've literally... Another thing I've been like, what? So get ready to change things up, be more innovative. Could be a particular argument with a male figure in your life, could be an authority figure, could be someone that's, for me, it's probably the dentist, to be honest. There is just a feeling of aggression here. Things need to change, you need to shed something, and you need to focus on starting over. So it could be that you need to have a new financial plan, you need to pay off a debt, or you need to focus on putting your money in a different pot. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the second house. Much nicer, more harmonious actually. This is where you're able to be more innovative in the ways that you make money, showing your gratitude for the finances that you do have. If you even have little money, be grateful that you got a roof over your head. Be grateful that, yeah, maybe I don't have this much, but I'm able to eat and some people can't eat. You know, I recently had a trip in which I had to spend a lot of money because of a situation that happened, and I decided to be grateful. I was like, you know what, be grateful you're even able to do that, you know. This would have financially destroyed me like a couple of years ago. So sometimes you have to be grateful for what you have, and I think that can start cultivating and growing like a snowball, and then it's like, oh, there's so many things to be grateful for, especially financially, and also having stability, like for example a roof over your head. February 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 8th house. So this is a very personal full moon in which we're releasing something that's weighed heavily on our hearts. I don't like moons in Leo because of the 8th house. For me, it just never is a good thing. But it's very emotional, it's very powerful. And it is a release, like for example, paying off a debt. It could be relinquishing ownership of something you have with somebody, or like saying, I don't want to share this with you anymore. I don't want to share something personal of myself, either physically or emotionally, with this person or this thing anymore. I want to be more private. You could also be exploring realms of intimacy and sexuality and being like, I'm going to change up the way that I feel about that and the transformation and growth that I have. This is very personal house, so I'm always quite vague about it because it resonates very differently for everybody watching. So take what resonates with this particular energy. But because Cap rising, yeah, definitely more financial, a little bit more focused on family this particular week. If you are an Aquarius, well, we have another week where it's very focused on you. So January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 3rd house. So Neptune is very illusory. It's a lot about manifestation and inspiration, but it's very much a lazy, duping, scamming kind of house, planet, sorry. So because of that, when it's in Aries in the 3rd house, this is about what is real and what isn't when it comes to what people are saying to you. This is really revealing the lies. When smoke gets in your eyes, realize, yeah? So it feels like I am rooting out the enemies, the energy of people that do not want to, you know, be truthful and authentic with me. There's also a sense of stepping into your authenticity here. But you could also be marking a new era of working with others, particularly you know, teachers, mentors, neighbors, that kind of thing, and saying that I'm going to challenge this old broken system. I'm going to be much more social and more out there and expressive. But at the same time, there could be energy where you are duped and scammed in the area of people telling you a false narrative or presenting a false narrative to you, to which you believe. And then it's like, oh, that was false. This is not real. I should not be following the truth of other people. I need to start following my own truth. I'm going to do a separate video on this, so I'm going to be quite vague here. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 1st house. So this has the potential to be quite aggressive and a bit, you know, I'm going to break through and change things. Very innovative. I really want to change things, but at the same time, you've got to shed, you've got to have a bit of aggression, you've got to have a bit of fight to be able to change things. And remember that growth and transformation is not linear, it's not straight. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's like, whew, you know. So there could be some anger here, particularly with a male figure in your life, an authority figure, or, you know, like a brother or a father. There could be some issues here. Generally for politics in the world, don't like this transit. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the first house is much nicer. So remember that Venus is in your first house, bringing harmony and making you very magnetic and attractive. It's for social, this transit. It's much nicer, showing gratitude for all the goals that you've been able to achieve, everything you've done. It's really lovely. And also just like lending some help to someone if they need it. February the 1st, full moon in Leo in your 7th house. Woo. So this is a very personal release of something that, you know, is being weighing on your heart very personally. For some of you, this could be ending of a relationship that you feel is right for you. It could also be you finished up a project with a group of people and you don't need to work with them anymore. You could be, you know, for example, like signing a contract and you're like, oh, got that out of the way. Maybe I just don't want this anymore. You could be selling something also. But this is really going to prep you for the energy that is coming in February, which is that you have a solar eclipse in your first house, which is going to be very, very competitive and very fiery. We've got Uranus going direct in Taurus. We have all this Mars, Mercury energy in your first house. So much fixed line energy, and it's all going to either be opposing, squaring, or in your sign. So be mindful of that. And finally, if you are a Pisces, January 26th, Neptune enters Aries in the 2nd house. So we've had Neptune in Pisces for the last 14 years. So that's been your first house. You might be very happy to see it out of your first house. You might be like, God, I didn't like it in my first house. Some of you might have loved it. But actually it's in the 2nd house now. So it is going to be a bit of a different theme for you. So obviously you know that Neptune in modern astrology is a co-ruler to Pisces. So it does have some shades of understanding what Pisces is really about. When Neptune's in Aries, a bit more difficult, more selfish, more... I don't want to say the word aggressive because that's so stereotypical, it's just not true. But more independent. Let's just say that. More independent. So there is a sense of inspiration and manifestation when it comes to finances, income and stability, where you want to be, so like where you want to be based, your roots. You know, it always makes me think of the quote from Madonna, and she's like, you can be a spiritual person and like to shop at Prada. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you can, but also it depends if you like Prada or you want to be a spiritual person. You know, there's some dupe there. I will say, and I get my shackles up about the 2nd house of Neptune, because oh my God, you could get scammed here. That's like when, oh, I went to Paris and someone stole my bag with all my cards and my passport in. Or, you know, I thought this was going to work out and it didn't. I bought a £55,000 car. The fucking bumper fell off in the first week, you know, that kind of thing. So depending on the aspects that Neptune's making here, there can be some real delusions around assets, property, money, stability. For some of you, it could also be about commitment and relationships, because that gives you stability, right? So that could be the mark of a new era as you challenge those belief systems. January 27th, Mars in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in the 12th house. So get ready to change things up with your mental health. You could have a very important therapy session here, or maybe like a conversation with a friend or family member or whatever. And realize, oh yeah, I got to start over on this thing. I can't keep going. You know, things must be changed. This transit is things cannot go on as they have been. And you could get quite angry and a bit annoyed here, especially with Mars being in your 12th house, which is that it's very lazy. So it can be something that you've been sitting on your hands about and you can't really do that anymore. January 29th, Mercury in Aquarius is conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the 12th house. Much nicer, more social actually, even though the 12th house is not social, it's much more hermit energy. So you are showing your gratitude spiritually to what you have in your life and the people that you have in your life around you, but also you are changing things up with your spiritual mental health routine, because as I mentioned on the 27th, things cannot go on as they are. So this is a bit of a change. February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo in the 6th house. So this is where you are focusing on releasing something that's quite personal to you. It's quite emotional, maybe powerful. So you could be saying goodbye to a co-worker. You could be releasing something when it comes to your physical health routine. So it's like, this is not working for me. I'm going to change this up. Changing up your diet, for example, especially because Neptune being in Aries actually gets you to assess a little bit more about your health when it comes to what you're eating and putting in your body, especially if you've got inflammation. And also you might find that there's a energy of someone in your life that could be using you and you're like, yeah, no thank you. But quite a pivotal week for you because of course, Neptune moving out of the first house and moving into the second house for you. So if you decided that you wanted to watch all those signs, then thank you very much. So this was the first weekly horoscope of the year, and I'm going to try and do these a little bit more frequently. I'd never guarantee every week because I've sat here for like an hour and a half and done this, right? Normally I do 40 minutes on TikTok, and then normally I try to do 4 minutes on YouTube, but I want to talk a little bit more about this week and some of the politics, what it's going to mean for everybody. So really appreciate if you could, drop a like or maybe leave a comment, because that's really good for me to know that you're liking this and enjoying it. And, as some people do, you can also tell me that I need to shut up, but hopefully you don't, because I do put a lot of work into these, and, it is appreciated if you watch and enjoy. So anyway, hope you have a wonderful week. Again, belated Happy New Year, and I hopefully will see you next week for the Neptune and Aries video. Bye.